shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you. So please, don't hide, just say I'll be there if it breaks, right beside you. Suddenly I know now how it feels. I no longer have to beg or steal. I can stand out on this higher ground, where love is just a sound. Where love is...
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Cresties. Hope you guys are having an awesome Sunday morning. I know I'm super tired this morning because I had a really busy night. We had a neighborhood barn party last night. So definitely was a bit of a struggle getting up this morning, but I'm here. Cup of coffee, much needed. Thank you for joining. It's been a very busy week. Some of you might have seen some posts online this week that it was my birthday on Thursday. So I turned the big 40, and we ended up going out to see a movie, and we went and saw Deadpool and Wolverine, which was awesome. So I don't know if any of you guys are Marvel fans or, any superhero fans or just, Ryan Reynolds fans and Hugh Jackman fans, but it was a really good movie. We had a great time, and I think I'm going to go see it again. I was trying to convince Gerald to go see it on Friday night because we have a drive-in nearby, and they were playing it this weekend. So it didn't pan out, but maybe it'll be a next weekend adventure. So we'll have to see. So let's see who we got in the chat this morning. We got 9 people. That's awesome. Thanks for joining, everyone. Chris from East Valley, good morning. Yeah, you get to claim the first. And I don't know if you've noticed, Chris, but you have a wrench now. So you got the power. And then we got, there's Gerald, my hubby in the house. Good morning. He's usually hitting the gym on Sunday morning, but I think he's also feeling a little bit like me this morning. So we're probably going to go to the gym later on this afternoon. It's probably a better idea. Enjoy the Sunday morning. And we got Natty's Micro Pets in the house. Good morning, Natty. Spitfire Geckos is in the house as well. Good morning. And we got Tammy. Tammy, you never miss an episode, and you're here every single Sunday morning, and I love the support. Good morning. And Gecko Nerds in the house. Good morning. Great live this week. It was a lot of fun to chat Pixel, and we're chatting Pixel again today. Cassandra D's in the house. Good morning. And I think that's it for now. Oh, what's Chris saying? I won't abuse it. Oh, the wrench. Well, at least you're here and you can help out if we need you, right? Aw, thanks, Tammy. Happy to have you here. And Spitfire's watching from work today. Love the support. So hope all you guys have all had an awesome week. We have a pretty awesome episode ahead of us. We're talking Pixel today and some other stuff. I think that what we'll do is we'll hop right into our tea time because there's one thing I wanted to bring up and share with you all. So I'm going to bring that up. So as you know, the tea time is where we share a little positivity, and woke up this morning to see this post from Little Monsters. And I think this is pretty exciting. So I'm sure most of you have been following on Instagram, see that the Reptile Super Show in Anaheim is this weekend. And there's been a lot of engagement online with some Crested Gecko breeders that have been attending. And there's been some large combined booths. So they share this picture showing that everyone was meeting up for dinner last night. So in this picture, we have Little Monsters, Beastie Babies, Morph Galaxy, AJD Reptiles, and Zero's Geckos, which are from the Gecko Pod. Tiki's Geckos, Morph Menagerie, Crestie Spectrum, Greenleaf Geckos, Lacuna OC Exotics, White Tank Exotics, and we also have a Canadian Rogue Cresties who went down to go and visit, which I think is pretty awesome. And I'd love to see, I think for the most part, gecko people seem to be very good about this and meeting up. I saw a lot of engagement too over at Flora Fauna. I'd like to see more of this for our Canadian expos. What Spitfire's saying here. We need to do things like this within our area. And exactly. Yeah. So I would like to do something like that maybe for CRBE when we're there and get a group of people together and maybe go out for dinner and, network and get to know each other and really kind of build your network and your community with other like-minded gecko breeders, right? So this was pretty awesome. And I just thought I'd share it with everybody and say kudos to them for doing that and sharing it with everyone to kind of encourage more of that in the community and in the hobby. The other thing was there was a lot of pixel talk this week. So following the Gecko Pod episode, there seemed to be a lot of discussions online on Facebook and on Instagram. Funny enough, I had already planned to do a Crestie Worx episode before the Gecko Pod episode aired. So I didn't think there was going to be that much pixel talk. So it's actually great timing that we're doing this because we can kind of lead into that and give a little bit more information to everybody. We're not going to make the full soul focus that, but I think it's kind of nice to maybe complement some of the things that were already shared. So I think what we'll do is we'll bring out our guest. And where is it? There it is. Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody.
We got Kristen from Crestie Worx here in the house today. So I think before we get into the big talk, why don't you share with everybody how long you've been into Cresties, why you got into Cresties, and where the name came from?
Okay. I think it's been about 16 years now. Long story short, since I can remember a little kid, I've always been involved in aquatics and reptiles, and that goes back from my grandpa and my dad. But I went to an expo one day and I saw the Crested Gecko and it just caught my eye, and I've been hooked ever since. And then, so when I decided to start going like full throttle breeding, the name was super hard because I wanted something different.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just couldn't. But like the whole Worx thing is because we're breeding and we're trying to figure out all these different things and make new things. So it's like a work in progress. So that's kind of where the name came from. The whole steampunk theme is I like steampunk stuff. So I just threw that in there. I thought it was a neat little twist. So but that's the gist of it.
That's awesome. And so you've been breeding Cresties for 16 years or just like having reptiles in general? So like when did your breeding adventures really start like getting more serious with Cresties?
Probably about 7 years ago with breeding heavily. I was doing some here and there, but I might have had like 5 pairs going or something for several years. And I was just building my stock. I had to buy small and grow up because I couldn't afford some of the bigger things. So it was a super long process to get to where I am today, actually. So there's nothing wrong with it. There's no hurry. We're not in a race to beat each other at all.
Well, and I think that's a good message for everyone to hear too, because it's easy to get caught up in it, right? Where you feel like you have to have the next the big thing, you know, like even when we saw like cappuccinos come out and stuff, and everybody wanted to, let's go to, you know, find cappuccinos wherever we can and like really jump on the next biggest trend. And sometimes, you know, playing a bit of a longer game can kind of pay off in the end. And trends come and go. Like I've seen it too with ball pythons. You have some genes that have been out for 10 years and no one was really big on them, and now all of a sudden they've blown up, and you have people that have had it in their collection working with it, and they're ahead of the game because they didn't think, you know, it was going to be a thing. So what did you start with? What was your main focus and projects? Like, was there a focus, or it was just like whatever you thought was pretty? And
Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason to any of it. I remember getting online and stuff, and there wasn't, I feel like the social media then wasn't as big as it is now.
yeah,
And there really wasn't a whole lot of information still. And
yeah,
so, I mean, I just was throwing stuff that I thought looked cool together. And that's where I started. Like there was no rhyme or reason. And one of the things too about growing up, a lot of small stuff is really good is because you get to see how things develop. And I think that's
yeah,
super important too, where you can all the things, like all different morphs, and see where they start and how, so you can kind of get an idea as well of how things evolve and stuff. I think that's super important to get a baseline there.
yeah. And then you kind of gauge like what works, what doesn't, you know, and the thing I find very valuable by holding back a bunch is to see the progression,
Yeah.
because that's very unique with Cresties, where you can get a hatchling that might not look like a whole lot, and then the progression from that gecko to when it hits like 20 grams and such could just be drastically different. And I've seen some of mine where I'm like, oh, I don't know about that one, and now like case in point, that little red lily that I had for sale, then I was like, oh, it's looking a lot nicer now as it's getting bigger. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna hold on to it and see how this goes.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that you have to build, when you're like with time and learning and
Yes.
working with them, and not being in such a hurry to kind of produce and sell, right?
Exactly.
So
Absolutely.
so tell me about the main projects that you're working on now, because we know that you're working on Pixel.
That's kind of taken over my life right now. And I'm super excited about it. Some of my other things, I'm like several generations in on some of the projects I've been working on, and
Okay.
some really cool things are starting to pop up that I have no idea, like really what's going on. Like I'm seeing a lot of weird stuff, so it's getting interesting.
Okay.
I love the oddball stuff. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I gravitate to. And if something just catches my eye, I keep it and work on it. I would say the empty back stuff, I've kind of become a fan, but I'm really digging the dark phantom empty backs.
Okay.
So I'm working on that. I've got some yellow stuff going on. I'm trying to figure out exactly which direction I want to go with the yellow stuff. I'm kind
Yeah.
of all over the place with the yellow stuff right now, and I love it, but I'm like, I don't know. And then the other thing is like the very extreme tiger harlequin stuff, the tricolor, the very bold, like the black and the orange and the cream. And I'm also trying to get some of the bold stuff with just like the Halloween stuff. So those are kind of like the big main projects, but I kind of have a little bit of everything. I like everything. So I do a little bit of everything, but and
You
I'm
have
not.
variety, right? So that you have different things, and then you're like, well, but these are my main. I think by default, when you're working on projects, just by how the genetics are, you're going to produce other stuff too
Yes.
while you're working on different things, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not a fan of pinners.
Yeah.
Right, at all. And I think it gives me tunnel vision sometimes about that stuff because I don't even want to look. Like,
But you like empty back.
I know.
Explain that logic.
It has a totally different look. It's the very dominant like pinstripe.
You like a thick, empty backside, but not like
Yes.
the pinstripe.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so my daughter, she's 21 and she lives at home, and she helps me with everything. I've taught her very well. And so she has her own projects going on too, and she likes the pinning stuff. And like I have pin stuff too, but I'm like, I just kind of like, okay, that's cool. But she has some pinstripe stuff going on because she likes it. And I do too by default, but there's a specific look that I like. So,
but it's also, it can be limiting, I guess, with some of the genetics that you're working with. Like, for instance, with Pixel, I'm like, the pinstripe, I would imagine, can cause a little bit of an issue when you're trying to blow up that pattern, and and some, I know with some other like triple X, I'm like, you're not going to have pinned if you're trying to do like a triple X Harlequin, cross that over, it kind of blocks it, right? So if it's going against some of the projects you're working on, I can understand why you wouldn't want to have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with the Pixel, is what's like, I'm trying to think of where to start with this. Like, so tell us a little bit about it, I guess, and what you've learned with it and how you're working.
So I'll start with how I ended up making mine, since it was a little confused on the Gecko Pod.
Okay.
So I had purchased, Tinker is the female, the mom to all the Pixels. I purchased her back at the end of 2017, I believe. She was probably 20 something grams. I saw her and I was like, what is that? And I just had a gut feeling that she was something special. So anyway, I had her. I got her from Gecko Junkie.
Okay.
Then she got up to breeding weight. I bred her to a male that I have here. His name is Marsh. And I don't think he's anything, but he's neat looking. And so her first season, she gave me 2 eggs. One was a dud, one was good.
Okay.
The one good one that first season was Buddha.
Okay.
So second, he was so cool looking that the next season I bred her back again to Marsh, and she did the same thing. She gave me 2 eggs the entire season. One was good, one was bad. And I got Buddha's brother. Buddha's brother resides with Robbie.
Okay.
And then that following, so then I was like, And I know like during this time too, there's been a lot of controversy about breeding back and all this. I'm not sure exactly why that came about in the gecko community, why it was such a no-no and taboo. I can kind of get and understand a little bit of reasoning why. But if it's done responsibly, it's fine. So anyway, I was like, screw it. If she's only giving me 2 eggs, and a lot of my friends were like, just sell her. Like, why are you still being patient with her? She's not producing. And I'm like, there's something there. I'm telling y'all, there is something about her. And sure enough, so I was like, okay. So I bred her son, Buddha, back to her. And she gave me 8 eggs, 6 of them popped Pixel.
Okay, wow. So they're the odds right there, right?
So the problem is, I don't know if it's recessive or incomplete dominant, because she never gave me enough eggs with another male to get that variety to see what popped. I have no idea. And then so I ended up, it was super hard to decide what I was going to breed her to again after all that. And then, let her rest and stuff. And I was like, well, I'm just going to breed her back to Buddha, because I know what's going to happen, and just get more to work with and to further cross out.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting visuals too, it makes it a bit easier to kind of outcross into different lines. And
yes,
if we're saying it's recessive, then you're potentially making more hats, right?
Yes. So she gave me 2 eggs, And both of those were pixel.
Okay.
They were, clutch mates, and that it was double pixel. And she didn't lay anymore, and then she passed away. We're not sure why she's passed, but I don't have her anymore to even try to go that route with her to figure out any of, if it's incomplete dominant or whatnot. So now I've had to wait for these guys to grow up so I can start breeding them. So it's been this season, and it's not been very lucrative at all. Nobody's wanting to cooperate. They're all virgins. A lot of them don't want to give me eggs at all. They're not giving me eggs. So I'm getting visual locks, no problem. I'm just not getting eggs. I finally have a set on the ground that I'm collabing with. Oh gosh, her name's Ashley, and I'm brain farting right now. Sorry, Ashley, on her name, her business name. But she had acquired, it's kind of a long story, but anyway, this female that I have from her is just like a red and cream Harley.
Okay.
I'm almost 100% sure she is het for pixel.
Okay.
So I'm super excited about those eggs because
fingers crossed.
I'm super excited. There's a couple other things too, but anyway, this female is mom to another pixel thing that I have picked up. Her name's Desert Rat, and I have a brother too. But those were produced by Freddie, that is MR Exotics here in Texas.
Okay.
So it's a very, very same look. So, and then Desert Rat is actually owned by Gamez Geckos.
Okay.
And I've had her growing her up. So there's been a lot of collaboration going on.
That's awesome.
I'm just trying to figure it out. Like I'm not trying to gatekeep. Of course we all want to make money, but I'm passionate about the geckos and the animals and figuring the genetics out, because the Cresties is a nightmare, and we've got to start somewhere. And it's like I was telling you, it's almost like trying to peel back an onion, layer by layer, to figure some of these things out. So, and I can't do it all on my own. And because of the way that I bred, I want to be responsible and be able to cross all my lines. So it's not inbred. Yeah. And that's a big deal for me, because it would have been very simple for me to breed a pixel female, a pixel sister and brother together this season. I could have. Yeah. And that would have told me exactly what I needed to know, and there wouldn't be any question. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go about it all the other ways. It's making
there's a line, right? There's an ethical line where, like, you're at, sometimes there are things that you have to do early on to kind of figure out some of the pieces, but then once you have some of the information, like, it's not a matter of, like you're saying, like, gatekeeping, right? Sometimes you have to hold stuff back and work with things for the betterment of the animals, right? And not just producing a whole bunch of numbers because you it's going to work this way, but then that's what you're putting out to the community, and then the individuals that are buying this might not know that they're pairing siblings together and so on, and that's what perpetuates that further on. So the fact that you're working with collabs with people, I think, like, we need more of that, where people are connecting when they're working on similar projects, right? Where you can kind of like, oh, you're working on this. This is what I'm working. This is what my breeding plans are, and how I'm pairing to try to see what results I'm going to get. And then maybe it's a matter of, doing some trades and stuff to cross the lineage, and then see how that works and have more of a teamwork. Yes. Because some of these projects will get answers quicker by doing it that way than having individuals just really working on their own specific projects, right?
Exactly. Because if it is a recessive gene, it's going to take a minute. And I'm super excited about Pangea's because they had eggs should be hatching soon, I think.
Okay.
Maybe another month. But they did what they believe is a het pixel lily white to a pixel. And they have
Okay.
eggs on the ground, I know. So we'll see what comes of that. And I know they're leaning more recessive too. It looks that way just with the things that have popped up. And then it's obviously something. I got 6 out of 8. So it's something. It's
Okay.
one or the other. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a line bred thing at all. But I know mine, what's been really hard is mine have such a specific look that sometimes it's hard to dissect some of the others that are popping up. Because
Yeah.
I get lots of questions like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I really genuinely try to answer those questions to the best of my ability. I don't try to blow anybody off. I want people to know that you can reach out to me because that's what this is about for me.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff, like sometimes it's super hard and I'm like, it could be, but I'm not for sure. Because I don't know. I'm only working with what I've been producing. And then you have AC lines that pinning in there is throwing me for a loop.
Yeah.
It's really, I'm like, oh. And then mine and Pangea's are super similar.
Mhm.
I have more of that pixelated, the white in the dorsal or whatever.
Okay.
But as far as, I mean, they're super similar, but AC stuff it really is throwing me for a loop.
Yeah. Now, you brought up the lily stuff, and I know that Gecko Nerd was talking about that this week because there was some confusion over lily and velvet. So, do you work with velvet yourself, or like
No.
do we know of like anyone who's produced what is confirmed as potentially like a lily pixel? Because I know there's so much like confusion on that.
There is, and this is one of the biggest things from my understanding, from my results, from AC's results, and from Pangea's results. The pixels are visible at hatch. It's very evident that they
Mhm.
are what they are at hatch. And then you have Lily that is very evident at hatch, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, if there's a pixel lily that pops out, it's going to be evident at hatch. You're going to
Yeah.
see visually, I think, pixel at hatch, and you're going to see visually at lily. I'm not sure how they're going to interact with each other. I would think that pixel is going to try to break up the white dorsum, it's super hard to kind of break over that white on the dorsal. And like with velvet, you're seeing some of that pixelation through the dorsal. And I've recently been able to cross all the way across, but you hardly see any of the base color going across the back. So I just think it's going to be evident at hatch. And I'm not knocking anybody at all. But some people are saying if you start to see it in 6 to 9 months, we've got to wait and let it grow out. It grows into it. I don't think that's the case.
Gecko Nerd is saying no confirmed pixel lilies yet.
And the ones that I've seen claim to be pixel lilies, I'm honestly not seeing it. And again, I'm not knocking anybody's work at all, but I'm not seeing. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not
And I would imagine it's probably a hard thing even to try to find, even to ID later on, because I mean, lily, it spreads, right? Like the white just gets, even if it was, and they didn't catch a picture of it at hatch, when you're getting it to, be a juvie and such, like that, whatever little holes might have been there would probably not necessarily, I don't know if it would even retain it.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But and I'm pretty sure Quincy with Gecko Nerd had mentioned it, but Izzy had posted a picture online that she just recently picked up. Was it last week at a show? And it's a little lily, but it does look like it could very well be a pixel lily. Like it's very different. I don't know if you've seen that picture
I
posted
haven't, no.
online yet, but it's super different. It's very, very odd. And I could see very well that it could potentially be just that, but we don't know. She has no lineage on it. There's nothing. So it's going to be something that she's going to have to work on and work out. But we just don't know. I don't think that everything that I'm seeing that's being claimed as a pixel lily, just it doesn't fit
And I think,
what it does.
yeah, and I think we have to be careful too, because like some of the other genes too can interact and sometimes
Yes.
show a different way, right? Like one of my main projects is empty back lilies, right? So like last year I produced a lot of het empty back lilies. And for the most part, you see there's like a definite stripe down the back, down the tail, down the stomach. But there was one specific one that hatched out where the back was all chewed up, where like all the lily could have looked pixelated, right, when it was hatch, but there's no possible pixel lineage in this at all. And I'm like, oh, to me, I'm like, that's just empty back showing through the lily in a different way. That's how I see it. And it gets kind of a little bit more empty near the tail. So I think that it's possible like that there's other genetics too at play, that like there's so many genes that get stacked on these animals. And like we were saying, it's hard to peel back. It's not like we have ball pythons where you can breed it to a visible normal and then be able to kind of seclude and like ID the different genes that are within that animal.
Yeah. And that's the issue. And I really hope that I don't want this to turn into a mess. I hope people can be like super responsible about it and not go wild and crazy. And we need to identify the pixel first before we start going wild and crazy and crossing it into everything else. Of course, I want to cross it into other things. But I think it's super important for us to be able to definitively ID it. And there's a few things that we're seeing across like mine, Pangeas, and ACs that's all similar.
Yeah.
And it's still hard. Like it almost is kind of like when the cap first came out. And we've had a lot of discussions going on with a lot of people just trying to discuss different things. And there's a lot of us that don't agree with each other on specific things.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence that maybe ACs is something totally different.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I mean, that's just it's sometimes I'm leaning, oh yeah, it's the same thing. And then I see stuff and then I'm like, maybe it's something totally different.
Look at the different lines of cappuccino that have popped up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then you hear different lines of xanthic as well. Like sometimes there's a similar gene that pops up, but it's just an anomaly in a different lineage.
Yeah, a totally different way. And that's
It
where
might not even be compatible.
yeah, that's where I was like, the pinning on ACs, I think that's the biggest thing that's throwing me. And,
Okay.
I'm having, because I'm so used to seeing where mine's just completely broken up and
Mhm.
then his is not. And I'm like, So that's kind of where, and I'm really trying to be critical on myself as well, to just try to
Mhm.
look at pictures and completely just try to dissect them back. And with the help of a lot of other people just talking about it. And, there's things that other people see that we don't see. So it's great to
Yeah.
have these talks and debate about it. And even if you don't agree on stuff, like agree to disagree, and let's just keep going, because sometimes somebody sees something or has a point that it makes sense. It just clicks and you're like, that's right.
Mhm.
I see that. So
The more information that we put out there and that we share, the easier it's going to be to figure it out. Like the
yes.
quicker we can figure it out. Because if everyone's kind of, and the other thing is, I think some people might be afraid to share that information out of fear of what other people might think of it or say if they don't necessarily agree, right? Because it can be a bit of a sticky situation. Sometimes, you share things and people are just not into it.
Yeah. Or it gets taken out of context and your words get construed. And I mean, that's kind of part of the reason this is the first time I've spoken really publicly about it.
Yeah.
Um, And
Well, thank you for coming here to do it. I appreciate it.
I've talked to a lot of people in private chats and stuff, and obviously in person about it, but I just haven't really wanted to come forward yet because I don't know what it is. And I don't want to put false information out there. And I don't want people to run with what I'm saying. That's why I try to make it very evident that this is my theory. I don't know yet. We're on the fence about it. Nobody has proven one way or the other. None of us have officially proven it. So it's just like, I want everybody to keep that in mind, that nothing is set in stone yet. It's still up in the air. So,
and this comment is not to you. This is my husband who's trying to be peaceful. And he's like, everyone can just politely agree to disagree. He's not telling you that he can politely agree to disagree. Gerald knows nothing about geckos. Let's just be clear on that. He knows that they're cute and they're in the room next door to him because he's over on the other side of these windows with ball pythons.
cool.
Well, why don't we bring up a couple pictures, because you sent me some of your top 5 favorite geckos that you have, and I know there's Pixel in this, so it'd be kind of neat to see some examples, right, of what you have in your collection.
Yes.
So who's this one?
So he is one that I produced, and actually his father is the second crested gecko I ever bought.
Oh, wow.
And he's an anomaly. There's only been one. The dad is a patternless red. Well, I
Okay.
guess you say bicolor. Anyway, he's bred a lot for me. And this is the second time that he has popped something black like this.
Okay.
The first time I sold it, I didn't know what I was doing. It was years ago. So this time when it popped, I kept him. And he's breeding for me this season for the first time. And I'm super excited about his offspring. The mom is also an older gecko as well. And she's a red harlequin.
Okay.
So I'm
We
not
got red and red producing this super dark orange looking thing.
Yes. And he has the darker tongue as well. He does not have any red blushing on his throat either.
Okay.
I did breed him to a red as well to try to see what happens, because I know there's a lot of debate on red and what it is and all this stuff.
Well, that's the other one too, of red being recessive or not, and that's another hot topic, eh?
So I was like, you know what? I haven't paid a lot of attention to it, but I'm like, he would be a perfect example to try to do. So I did breed him to red. So we'll see what comes of it and what happens. But yeah, I don't see any red on him anywhere, but I mean, it's there. So I'm super excited just to see what he produces.
So is this his first season this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't know what he's going to produce. This is all going to be new territory.
Yeah. Some have hatched already, but like, you know how reds and darks kind of hatch the same color and you don't know what direction they're going to go because that's what it is right now. And they're all like within the last couple weeks hatched. So I have no idea exactly what's going to happen.
Okay. And the reds tend to pop up more vibrant the older they get, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
No, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see you post pictures and show. And I'm just trying to see, is there pinning in there?
Of course. He's different. So I had
He's different. So he made the cut.
Yeah.
No, he's super nice. I like him. So who we got here?
So this is a funky thing that, and we've been seeing this too, that could pop up in the whole pixel conversation. That dirty pattern back there. I purchased him on Morph Market from, I don't know exactly. They deal more in snakes.
Okay.
But, I have several other things going on too. I call this the dirty look. I don't know what it is, but I'm seeing it more and more now that we're talking about pixel, because it kind of does look pixelated from a distance.
Yeah.
So I have other things in my collection that are similar, and I think we just got eggs on the ground from him. I want
Okay.
to see what it does. I'm super excited to see what it's doing and just kind of keep track of that, because it's something else that I've been seeing consistently, and just see what it's doing. I don't know. I'm going to cause myself to get more gray hairs, I think.
So did you breed him to like more of a one of your visual pixel females, or is it something like?
No, I didn't breed him to a pixel at all. I
Okay.
bred him. I have some other stuff in my collection that has this similar look on the back,
Okay.
um, and I bred it. I bred him to those.
To see what comes out of it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. So there you're so you have so this is his first pairing as well. So you're gonna have some surprises this because
yeah.
they haven't hatched yet, right?
No, so
Yeah.
I'm excited just to see, because, like I said, this is kind of being brought into the pixel world too, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's anything or just something that's just coming about from,
Well,
you
and
know.
we had a talk about this earlier too. Like for all we know, it could be het markers as well, right? Like you don't know.
Yes.
Like when you see reptiles that are more established with set genetics, like for instance, like with ball pythons, with pieds, you'll have ones that have ringers, or they'll have way more white pattern and they're not a visual pied. They only have the one gene, so they're still het for pied. But depending on the interaction with other genetics, it shows up, right? So
Right.
these are all things that we don't know. We don't have the
No,
answer
and
to.
like another thing, and that wasn't touched on, and that I want to touch on too,
Yeah.
back to the pixels. Well, and this has something similar going on too, or the scales along the dorsal.
Yeah.
So on mine, you can see on here like the scales, the fringing or whatever goes a little bit down right past his front legs. And then it just kind of it breaks up a little bit, but not much. Like his scales get smaller.
Mhm.
On my pixels, it does that, but then it just like it almost there's no scales, dorsal scales at all. They're
Okay.
very, very short, and they're spaced super far apart from
Let me
each
see.
other.
Is the next one a pixel? Yeah. So maybe we can use this as an example.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like the edge of the scales, like when it comes down to the neck and then they kind of flatten out down the
Yes.
sides, right?
Yes, and they legitimately like are spaced further apart. So I see that in mine. I see that in Pangea's. I see that in some of the other stuff that I think
I
are,
have it in mind too. Yeah.
yeah, it's super. Now, of course, I go and look at everything, and like there's other morphs that have this too. Um
Okay.
So it's not just secluded to the pixel, but it's something that I am seeing that is very consistent with the pixel. Um, and their head too. Their head, I think it was Jess who brought it up on the Gecko Pod, something I think in here. I don't
Yeah.
know if I necessarily am seeing that, but they're it's very like I don't know, like their crest and everything. I feel like their snout is shorter, but all their
Yeah.
heads are very like almost like a kite. Does
They
that
have more of a compact face. Yeah. And she was talking, they were talking about dips and stuff, but I was listening to it when I was driving. So it was just the audio. So I'm like, I'm sitting there driving. I'm like, oh, I want to see what they're pointing out. I got to see these heads. So I got to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, sometimes I have to really be shown to like understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have a hard time sometimes, but um, definitely looking at like all of them across the board, their head shape is definitely similar. It's been brought to my attention too that a lot of the tails have something similar going on as well. Um, the
So what's the thing with the tails? If we can kind of just clarify that.
Okay, so on mine, you'll see that the top of the tail is basically all one color. There's no like vertical lines. There's no, you know how like on a lot of crested geckos, it's pretty much blank on the top, but you still get that dark color underneath is kind of
Yeah.
coming up. on the sides.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't do that at all. It's completely, there's a complete line on the sides of the tail that totally, it's two different colors.
Okay.
And kind of on the sides where the darker color starts, you can kind of see some vertical lines.
Okay.
That's pretty evident on a lot of them. Some of them have some color on the top of the tail, in other collections, but there is some vertical lining on the tail. Now, obviously, we all know that tail markers can't always be accurate, but there
Yeah.
are a few little things within the tail that we're seeing that is definitely, they do have that dark color on the bottom and then go to that lighter color on top, and then there's some vertical lining going on too.
Gotcha.
If it means anything, I don't know. It's just another thing that we kind of have been seeing.
It's a trending thing that you're seeing, right? As you pop out more pixels and you're kind of, oh, that's kind of it's similar to like the caps, where a lot of the caps had the little Y and the white at the top. But then as you start putting more genetics and stuff into it, seems to be not necessarily as apparent in all
Right.
caps that are being hatched, right?
Right.
So
And
it's a nice thing to look for, but not necessarily the only thing to look for, right?
Right. And I want to, guys, I'm really going to try, because I'm a visual learner. I really want to do some pictures and like circle stuff so people can really understand like what I am talking about. And maybe I can collab with somebody that's better with the tech stuff, because I'm not all that there. And get this out so people can, and I know Anthony with Little Monsters, he wants to compile all this information, but I feel like there's some stuff that needs to come out now, and it's not jumping the gun. I just want everybody to be clear. It's just some of the stuff that we're seeing. So maybe people can start looking closer at things and getting a better feel for what we're seeing.
Like maybe just like a provisional ID guide, what to look for that's not necessarily in the fundamentals, like in the actual document yet, that's something
Yes.
that like trends and things that you're
Yes.
seeing.
And so another thing that is similar too is there is a faint line down the back too, right in the middle
Right
of the
down
back.
the middle.
And some have it more than others. Some it's really faint. It's very, very faint here. It's more dominant at hatch, and then as they grow, it kind of fades out. And not all of them have that. What are they?
The question is the skin super roughed or just appears that way?
No, it just appears that way.
Yeah.
I don't have great feeling in my fingertips, so I'm not a good judge of like the soft scale and all this stuff. So a lot of times I try to put things up to my face to get a feel for it, but it's still not the same. I have been told by others that they seem way softer.
Yeah, and I think it's because of how the scales are. Like, I'm not saying like
Yes.
it's like soft scale or other, but there is, like you're saying, like along the sides, it looks rough because of the pixelation and what you see in pictures. But the scales I find are very flat.
They
You
are.
just have some that are they're a lot more larger round, like in diameter. And then you have them, they're all kind of weird, different sizes, and
Yes.
they're scattered around and there's gaps in between them, but they
Yes.
just actually feel soft. Like they don't have a rough feeling or anything to them.
Not at all. And it's super, it's sometimes it's easier to look at Pangea's line because it doesn't have, he's really hard to look at because the pattern there with the colors
Mhm.
makes it super hard to tell. And it does make him look super rough there.
Yeah.
So I see exactly what they're saying, but no, it's not rough at all. It's less rough than a normal crested gecko, honestly.
Mhm. Let's bring the next one up here. So here's one a little bit maybe easier to look at because it's just a solid color.
Yeah. But you can see, especially on her head, you see how it's just like, it reminds me of a kite. It looks they're very, and they all have that kind of kite looking head. I don't know how to describe it. Somebody could describe it better, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She's the anomaly out of all of them. The other one that you saw was pretty much what all of them look like,
Okay.
other than her. She is super bright, and everybody loves her. She's the fan favorite. I'm on the fence. I like that crazy busy stuff, but her color is just so intense. If you like, the pictures don't do her justice, and I take awful pictures, but in person, like, she is super bright. It's pretty wild.
The orange just pops on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a different, it's neat to see the different look, right? Because when you're seeing one with a little bit more dimension of color, it's more obvious to see the pixels
Yes.
because they're like all a bunch of little dots. Whereas this one, it's a more, you can still see it like coming down the sides and how it's kind of broken apart. But it's just a solid color. So it's not as, I guess, not as, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't pop the same way. I guess it still
No,
pops. But just,
yeah, it's not. No, like, sometimes when I look at the other ones, like, it hurts my eyes. Like, it messes with my eyes. But yeah, she's definitely easier on the eyes when it comes to really trying to look at what's going on down the back. And mine are super pixelated back heavy. Like, it's not really so much on the sides. It's
Mhm.
all on the back. Versus
Okay.
for some others, you can see some of the pixelation, on the bottom, or just coming down from the higher sides, I guess you could say, just coming down from the dorsal.
Gecko Nerd's asking if you have any animals in your pixel group without orange pattern.
Ooh. That are pixels,
Yeah.
or just no.
Do you mean, Gecko Nerd, do you mean like ones that she's working into the project or that hopefully will produce some white pixelated pattern or that have been produced? We're going to clarify that. Maybe you can answer both questions.
What I have noticed, a lot of them have the orange or the tang somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah, so he's saying yes, a part of the project or possible pixels.
So I would have to say yes, that most of them have orange.
You see, sorry, go ahead.
There's some that I have that I think there's something, but I don't know yet. I haven't proven that that are like a totally different color. Like the one that I'm working with, Ashley, that female of course she's not a pixel, but she's just a red and cream Harley. So I don't know, but everything that I do have that pretty much is pixelated, that I think the one that Freddie made that I have that's owned by Gamez Geckos, she has a little bit of orange in her. It's not as dominant as like in my stuff, but yeah, it all has the orange.
Okay. See, that's a question that I find really interesting, and to see where it's going to go, because I have dreams of grandeur of bringing it into Xanthic. So, an Xanthic, I need high white pattern Xanthics that are non-lily. And from my understanding, it needs to be white pattern and not a yellow or an orange pattern, right? So it'd be interesting to see, while we're working with Pixel, if that ability is there to create a pixel animal with a white pattern.
Right. Yeah.
But time will tell. I mean, once you get it's time. It's time and strategic pairings, and if it's recessive, it ends up taking a lot longer to do it too.
It does. And I'm still on the fence about possible markers for the hets. I mean, I want to put a little reel or story out or something of all the ones that I've picked up to put into my pixel project that I just picked up. And it's pretty evident what I'm looking for. I have a hard time explaining things. I'm better at showing. So I will put that out there so people can kind of see, but I haven't proved any of that out yet. So I have no
Yeah.
idea. And it's just kind of some stuff based off of all the things that I'm finding similar and the actual normals that hatched out of my pixel pairing too.
Okay. So this one here you produce, correct?
Correct.
And this is from
This is from
your
Tinker and Buddha.
okay. Okay.
Yep.
And your has she produced eggs for you yet, or where are you at with
No,
her?
she's not. So she is paired to Kraken, which was produced by the Crested Closet. It's one that I picked up from her right away when she popped it out. It was something totally different and it was somewhat pixelated. I am not 100% sure on that one if it is or not. It looks
Okay.
super similar, but I'm still on the fence on that one. But I paired him to her to try to find out, but she is being greedy and won't give me any eggs. So,
He's holding on to them.
yeah, she's like, absolutely not. And she is my only female because I did sell off two females.
Okay.
So, and I have the rest are all boys.
You're like, come on.
Which is okay. I mean, having the boys works because then I can really, pair a lot of other things to it and maybe get some answers quicker. But
Yeah.
she's just so different that I'm like, come on, girl.
Yeah. It'll be awesome to see when she does start laying eggs and what she's producing with the pairing. And now we have a non-pixel.
And so that's a tuxedo line cap.
Okay.
And this is actually my daughter's gecko. And this
Okay.
is actually, I'm super excited because I'm getting on the cap game late.
You and I both.
So this is a huge project for me right now.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So this is the first cappuccino that we bought. And
Okay.
we got it for her birthday. So she owned, I have caps now that I own, but this is actually my daughter's. So she got a cap before I did. It's not breeding. We got it small, but I'm super excited to start working with that and trying to put it. My vision for the cappuccinos, I really like that bright, dense. It's not really, it's that orangey color that you're seeing, like the tigery ones and stuff. I want to go there with it. I don't know, but I have a lot of ideas in mind. We'll see what happens. But I'm super excited I love the cappuccinos. I think it's the best thing ever. I think there's so much work to be done with them still. So I'm super excited about that. And eventually I'm going to work the pixel into that too and see what happens.
That's awesome. And cappuccinos too is one of those things where it boomed, it was super popular, then it tanked, and we're only now seeing people who really stuck with it and were working with it. You can only now start seeing the potential of what you could possibly, do with cap. And people are producing some really cool things. Like you said, the tiger ones are really, really neat that I've seen. And and there's some bright orangey ones and all sorts of different things are starting to pop up. I got onto the cap game late as well, and my struggle is seeing it. I'm like, okay, so when they're I'm like trying to see the difference between just an empty back regular and then a cap. I'm like, okay, where am I seeing the difference? So I think that's something that I know for myself I need to kind of develop and have that eye for. But
it goes back to all just working with stuff, having it
Mhm.
little and growing it up. You really need that to get an eye for things. I know sometimes it's super hard to explain to people what they need to look for, but somebody that has worked with it can spot it super easily most of the time. And I was lucky enough that I'm good friends with Janine at Treehouse Geckos. So I got to live vicariously through her. So I was able to see a lot of stuff in person, even though that I didn't own any or work with them. So it was a little bit easier for me to identify them because I was technically around them a lot in person. But even then, there's still some that are super hard to identify, especially the phantoms.
Yeah.
Especially the phantoms. So, I mean, we're still trying to identify some caps sometimes, and it's just it's one of those things. It's not always going to be black and white, unfortunately.
Yeah, Janine has some amazing geckos.
Yes, she does. She's
I
worked
think
really hard on
I
them.
think some of these are a little bit easier to see and kind of ID when they're hatchlings too, because of the
Yes.
color when they pop out, like if they're super dark, or you can kind of see, the definite things that you're looking for
Yeah.
right out of the egg. No, that's awesome. I'm gonna pop this down. So you work with other stuff, not just geckos as well, right?
Yes. um, I do. Well, I do have gargoyles and Sarahs and leechies too that I breed. And actually, the Sarahs are becoming quite a favorite. Um, I have morning geckos too that I breed. But I've really gotten into garter snakes. I
Okay.
love the garter snakes. So I haven't started producing any, but I plan to. And then my husband has a little collection of retics going on. And
A collection of retics. I mean, these are not like garter snakes. They're not small.
no,
Are these super dwarf retics or like legit
no,
retics?
no, they're legit. So there's a whole wall in our living room that is the retic wall.
Okay.
Not all of them are full grown. We have one full grown. The rest of them not so much. So there's going to be some moving around of things, but I couldn't count how many. I mean, he might have like 8 or 9 of them now.
So is he gonna do his own little side hustle
I
with
think
retics?
so. He wants to just kind of play with it. And I know like there's a lot of controversy that surrounds, the retics, but
Yeah.
it's just something that he wants to toy with. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I have a pair of the Vietnamese Blue Beauties. I'm super excited about those. I have some Corns and Kings. I plan on breeding those as well. Nothing. I bought small. So
Yeah.
again, growing things up. So
This is more
hopefully,
for like hobby and for fun and because you enjoy
yeah,
it, right? It's
yeah. So those are just like I enjoy them and I like them. So I'm trying to think. I know I'm forgetting some stuff. Oh, I have a pectinata. We
you have
have
tegus.
tegus. I'm trying to think. We have fish, of course. What else is in there? We have a tarantula. Oh, we have the venomous, the shield nose.
Yeah, so that was interesting when you explained that to me. So I think some people will find that pretty interesting. A little neat fact about the snake.
Well, the people that know me already know, but I'm terrified of the retics. But I have no problem messing with venomous at all. Probably because I am in control of the venomous, whereas I'm not. I'm a short person. I'm a little person. A retic can squeeze me up. So I don't mess with the retics at all. But the shield nose is very, very cute. I don't know if they're not a real popular venomous. They're not, I don't know. She's maybe a little bit longer. She's a little bit longer than a roller. But she looks kind of similar to a Western hognose. But their little snout is very, very shoveled and it's flat and looks like a little shield. But they stay buried all the time, just like a sand boa, unfortunately. But their strike distance is very short. It's about 6 inches. So you really have to do something stupid to get hurt by one.
They
So
pop out just like a tremor.
they really do.
Like, just like I don't know. We're like
Right. She does. It's hilarious. Like she gets pissed, but she hoods up and she does this like little 360 and she's hissing and It's kind of funny. She's very beautiful. Her colors are gorgeous, but you just never see her.
Yeah. No, I get you on the retics. Like, we don't have any here, but they get big. Like, that's a 2-person snake.
Yeah, I can't. I try, and I'm getting a little bit better. The smaller ones I don't have a problem with, but it gives me, like, I start to panic. One of ours unplugged. We use the heat panels, and it unplugged the heat panel and it jacked it all up. So he was rigging it up to fix it. And we need a bigger trash can to put him in. But so I tried to hold him, and he started like in my face. And I was like,
you're like, nope.
Yeah, I couldn't. I was like, please, please. I don't know. And we all have that fear, and everybody thinks it's so funny that I'm scared of retics, but not venomous. And I'm just like, I have more control with the venomous.
Yeah. So you also do carnivorous plants, and
Yes.
you sent me a couple of pictures. I think this is an interesting thing because I see Venus flytraps everywhere. Like, you go to Home Depot, like, they're everywhere. They have these little tiny ones, but they never like come with like a care guide, and there's such a different plant to keep. So tell us about carnivorous plants.
So this is obviously a Venus flytrap. The biggest thing with carnivorous across the board is they need specific water requirements. Okay. So I always tell people they need bougie water. You can't use tap water, and it's not anything that is put into the water. It's the mineral content. So some people's water is fine. It just depends on where you're at. And they have these little TDS meters that you can buy to check your water. And it's like, it tells you how many parts per million of mineral content is in there. And fly traps are the more sensitive out of the carnivorous, and they need 50 parts per million and under on the mineral content. Okay. So anyway, I have a RO system, a reverse osmosis system. People can buy distilled. You can catch rainwater. So they have, but most of your RO systems, like your refrigerator filter is not sufficient enough. You need an actual like 3 to 5 step filter system that gets enough of the mineral content out. Gotcha. So that's the biggest thing across the board with all of them. You have to use the right water. It's an overload because they take all their nutrients in through the bugs that they absorb. So it just burns them up. The other thing is they're really not a good house plant. They really need to be outdoors. People do grow them inside. They just aren't. The fly traps need to go dormant and for their life cycle to continue. So if they skip dormancy too many years in a row, they'll just kind of fizzle out and die. One fly trap will live 20 years if you let it go dormant every season. And that's just cooler temperatures. But people, like I said, people do keep them indoors. There's ways to refrigerate them. I grow outside, so I don't monkey with that side of it. But they need a lot of light too. That's the thing.
But you're also in Texas, right? So your winter is going to be a bit different. Like, if I'm going to put it outside in Canada, I'm like, it's not going to survive.
No. So like, I'm closer to the Oklahoma border in Texas, so we get a little bit more cold weather up here versus, further mid Texas, South Texas, of course. But mine pretty much stay out all year round. There's a couple times that I just basically covered them, depending on what they're potted in. Like, you can only do peat moss or like a sphagnum moss. Peat moss is going to be a more insulation for them. So I grow mine in peat moss, so that way I don't have to really monkey with them come wintertime. I have thousands of these. So I'm not moving them around.
Easier to feed when they're outside too, because they're getting bugs on their own.
Yes. And so and I have customers that keep them indoors and they have them under a light or whatever, and they're cool with them living, you might get 5 years out of them, which is a long time for a plant.
Mhm.
But you can catch any type of bug and throw in there, but they do feed themselves outside. You don't have to worry about anything. They do their own thing. But these guys have to be setting in water all the time because they're
Okay.
naturally from a bog, so you can't let them dry out.
Okay. So you want them in a pot that's sitting in water, essentially.
Yes. Yep. Sitting in water, the right water, and lots of sun. And those are your three biggest things on the Venus flytraps.
Awesome. And you just feed if you have them as a house plant and you have full sun and all the right conditions for it, you just basically feed it like a cricket or something in there, or like I've
Yeah.
heard people give them fish flakes. I don't know.
So not on the flytraps, no.
Okay.
That would be used on like a sundew,
Okay.
or you could put those in the Nepenthes. The Venus flytraps absorbs differently than some of the others.
Okay.
You would have to give it a insect of some sort. And I tell, because kids love to feed them, so I'm like, turn the porch light on at night and go out there and catch any of those flying bugs out there,
Yeah,
and
moth or something.
yeah, and feed it. It's just anything, grasshoppers, and typically any like super worms and stuff are a no-go because they'll eat out of the plant. But
Okay.
everything else is pretty much a go.
How often do you feed them? Like if you were to have it in your home, like is it a weekly thing or
You could do it weekly. I wouldn't feed all the traps at once. They don't need that
Mhm.
at all. And another big thing about them, so each trap only opens and shuts 4 to 5 times, and then it dies. It's done.
Oh, okay.
But new ones grow up through the middle to replace all the ones that are dying. It's just a constant cycle.
Okay.
But even if you're triggering it with just your finger, that still counts. Now it
Okay.
will open up a lot faster because it knows that there's nothing in there.
Okay.
Because it feels, so when a bug gets caught in there, the bug obviously moves around and it feels that, so it closes in tighter.
Okay.
And if there isn't any movement when it closes, it knows, and it usually opens up within 24 hours.
Gotcha.
So they're pretty neat. If you get down, like I could talk and go into grave detail about them, but they're a really cool plant. Like they're super smart. They've adapted. During the winter, there's not a lot of bugs, and that's why
Mhm.
they go dormant. And what happens is they look like they're almost dying. And so this one is just coming out of dormancy. Typically,
Okay.
their leaves are a lot longer and the traps get
Okay.
big. But during dormancy, their leaves get very short and fat, wide, and their
Okay.
traps are tiny because they photosynthesize during the winter and they
So
don't.
they don't go black or anything because I've seen people where they're like, oh, they like you'd have no traps in the winter. Like, is that a thing where you'd like when they go dormant or
You're going to get a lot of die off,
yeah?
but
Okay.
there's still going to be growth there. There still should be green there
Okay.
when during the winter. It shouldn't be just all black there. But they will turn black when a Venus flytrap starts to die off. It starts to turn black, like at the trap part, and then the whole thing from there goes all the way down into the leaf, and it just dies.
Okay. Gotcha. And then you sent me a picture of another carnivorous plant. So
It's
what's
not a
this
great
one?
picture. So those are Sarracenias. They have all different kinds of these. Some of them get 3 feet tall.
Oh
Um,
wow.
we have native ones here in Texas. I know there's native ones in several different places here in the United States. I know. Um, but what's cool about these is that they can freeze, and
Okay.
they're not as sensitive to the water conditions as the flytrap per se. So
Okay.
they can handle tap water every once in a while. They can handle a little bit harder conditions compared to the flytrap. A lot of people build bogs, like big round like planters, bogs with these and the fly traps in them, and they look
Oh
really,
cool.
really pretty. I have one actually. I need to go do an update of it, but it's doing really well. I floated one out in my pond out back to see how well it was
This
going to do, and it's doing great. I need
That's
to go see
awesome.
a video of it. So I was just curious. I haven't gone to go check my water in the pond, but
Yeah.
like naturally the sediment and stuff and all the different things in our soil filters the water naturally. So I was just curious. So like, I was like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice you and see what happens, but it's been doing great. So we'll see. But they produce, these guys, how they eat, like, okay, the fly trap, when it closes, it ends up, the insect in there starts to get gooey.
Okay.
And they absorb that goo, basically the guts and stuff of the insect.
Okay.
These, they create like a sticky substance down in there.
Okay.
And they also have these little hairs that go down. So if an insect climbs in, they either get stuck in that sticky substance, or when they try to climb out, those little hairs are very irritating to them as well.
Okay. They keep them from climbing out because they kind of keep them down.
Yeah. So, and another thing that's cool, I have a lot of tree frogs that live inside these because some of them are quite big at the top.
Okay.
Especially the ones that get 3 feet tall. But tree frogs will, nestle down in there and have their little head poking out. And when a bug comes in, of course, they eat it and they poop in the plant.
Stealing their bugs.
But the thing is they poop in the plant, and that still feeds the plant. And it's very typical. So it kind of share a symbiotic relationship.
That's neat.
So they're fun. They're a fun plant, and there's all different ones. They get some of them, the colors are just insane on some of them. These get very red, like a burgundy red, and they get very veiny looking. These are just coming out of dormancy as well. Some are more of like a pinkish red with like white speckling. I don't know. They have very pretty ones.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing some carnivorous plant info with us.
Yeah.
I think the plants go hand in hand with geckos and stuff, right? Like everyone's kind of gotten into plants and has that too, and that interest. And it's kind of neat to hear something different than the regular like aeroids and like all the other stuff that's out there. That, a little different take on plants.
It's fun.
So is there anything else that you want to share pixel related before we close off for the morning? Or I think we pretty much touched on a lot of stuff.
No, I mean, I know that this is probably not some answers that people were wanting either, but I promise I plan on trying to get some information and pictures out there. And I know me and Quincy at Gecko Nerd, we plan to go live as well. To talk about it a little bit more, maybe get some other people involved. I don't know. I think that's just what it's about. And we just need to kind of get together more and discuss it openly more and just be more open-minded with each other's theories.
That's awesome. So where can people find you? I'm sure most people know where to find you, but you have a website.
I do. So it's just www.CrestieWorx.com. Super easy. Crestie Worx.
Instagram. You on Facebook?
Facebook, yep. I'm on TikTok, but I haven't posted there in a really long time. I'm not good with tech, y'all. I'm just barely learning Instagram. I'm trying really hard. I don't know.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kristen, for taking the time to sit down and chat with us. And I hope you have a wonderful week ahead of you.
Thank
and
you.
I will see you in the back room.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for sticking around. For those of you who are tuning in later, thank you very much for coming to support. And if you have any questions or comments, leave it in the chat. And so that's our episode for this week. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and have a great week, and see you next Sunday.
Shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you.